My name is Mark Cooper. This is Tia Abner, and we're getting ready to start our panel about diverse STEM career pathways for esports and gaming. And I'm coming from me personally. She's from the local area.
Yes.
And I'm actually coming all the way from Detroit, Michigan. So I'm just really excited to be here. I love this event. I love being able to do this. And it's actually our first panel being at MAGFest, which is really great. So I'm just super excited about that. Thank you so much, man. I'm just super excited. So a little bit of background about me. A little background about me is that I'm actually a high school teacher. I teach esports and gaming. This is actually my first year doing that. So I actually not only teach about the esports aspects of it, but now that high schools are allowing, to have competitive games against other high schools and things like that, colleges are able to offer scholarships and all of those, I get a chance to coach the kids. So it's like you wanted to be on the football and the basketball team, but maybe you were just good at the video game version. Now I can be the person with the clipboard, be like, you should have did that play, and be like, like be a real coach. So it's actually kind of fun. So that's just a little background about me from that aspect, but I'm also a nerdcore artist as well. So I also go by Player One, if you heard it before. I'll also be on the Chip Space this Saturday. We'll watch out for snakes and all them around the afternoon. So doing a lot of really cool aspects there. And I'll have Tia introduce herself.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. I am Tia Abner, as you heard. I have been working to develop more diverse and equitable STEM pathways to not only the esports and gaming industries, but across the enterprise for about 10 years. I've worked in organizations like 4-H, Georgetown University, and I'm a growth consultant for TikTok's Education and Philanthropy Division. Right now, I actually work for an organization that aims to get more diverse populations and communities on pathways towards graduate degrees, leadership positions in STEM, and as well as making sure that there's equitable pathways open for future diverse audiences. So in alignment with sort of this panel specifically, I am also a gamer. A lifelong gamer. I am a GTM strategy consultant which is a partnership that's between Microsoft's Black and Latinx Partner Growth Initiative, which works to deliver interactive, accessible, and affordable tools and frameworks to assist esports educators like Mark and for learners as well. I also should mention I'm also an artist, prowess the testament. I'm nerdcore adjacent, I would say. But yeah, so together we make up Fireproof Partners.
Yep. All right, so this is just basically like an overview. This is we'll have some stuff with slides and all that, but it's just really just like the basic concepts. And of course I'll elaborate more in detail, just kind of to break things down for it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, I know a lot of people have heard of esports or just the whole thing in general about we've seen all the Twitch and G4, and we just know about a lot of competitive games throughout history. But I'm just gonna go through just a rough of what esports is now. The next year will actually explain about STEM and how they relate with esports, because even though esports has a professional gaming and things like that, but there's always a value of saying, hey, maybe if I wanted to take this serious, what would be the next particular pathways that I can use to be able to, really do the jobs I really want to. And then finally, we come together and explain, how diversity plays a part with STEM and esports. Because just like anything else, there's people of color, there's a lot of, women gamers, all different, different conglomerates and things. And we just, see how they relate everything with diversity. So I'll start off. That's why I'll say it's okay. What is esports? Esports obviously is a particular company or genre that explains of having professional gaming is where it needs to, but it didn't necessarily always start there. Shockingly enough, when I was doing the research and studying, is that esports type of things were starting back in the early 70s, and I didn't know that. So when it came to game tournaments and things like that, a lot of it was pinball machine, Atari, Pong, things of that nature. So it got there to start off first. Because at first, a lot of people would say that maybe 2012, 2013 is when ESPN or Brian Gumbel was like, yeah, this is considered a professional sport. I just coined it, you know what I mean? But it's been going on for, practically more than, about 50 years now that we think about it. Particular competitive gaming has been around for half a century. That's pretty daunting to even think about. So when that particular started, it was just like, that was around the era where it's like 70s and the 80s where there was a lot of different extracurricular sports that's not the main six or the Olympics were there. So that's like when skateboarding was starting to get popular and like X Games and all those things were coming in. So they had some stuff coming in the 80s for that. So once that happened and they did the arcade cabinets, high score, things of those, then consoles came in. That's the NES, that's just, the Segas, all of those. And then that's what grew into the Nintendo Championships. And the reason why Nintendo decided to grasp on that is because they realized that at that time, they were the sole competitor. They were like the monopoly of game consoles. Like anybody wanted a Nintendo. So they wanted to actually, embrace those skills. And then that was something that bridged the gap of, if you remember, not everybody's gonna remember. Like even I don't. But it's like there were situations where you could call a Nintendo hotline if you were stuck on a game, and you could literally sit on the phone with somebody else and be like, "Hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that?" And then they see how much engagement was in consoles at that time. So that's where let's do the Nintendo Championships. That's where the infamous Street Fighter II tournament came for Japan, and then having those aspects, especially if you look at the documentary High Score. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that. And still on Netflix, and Console Wars, those two. I had the pleasure to meet the marketer for Sega that made the infamous "We Do When Nintendo." They got a chance to actually talk with him in Clubhouse. It was just crazy, it was amazing. And the thing is, with my brand, of music and things like that, I rock a Nintendo Power Glove. So I was having a conversation with him. He was like, "Yeah, I was working with Mattel when we made that glove." I was like, "That's awesome." I was like, "Then why didn't you make a left-handed one?" He was like, "Well, it was only there for a year, and it's one of those continued things." So made a whole story to make a left-handed one. So I'll show you guys that a little bit later. But to go a little bit further, after it got to consoles, people were really enjoying those in the cabinets. So later in the 2000s, that's when the internet boom was coming, and then people were playing playing Counter-Strike was very heavy then. That's where, your LOLs, your WoWs, etc., your StarCraft, various different games and tournaments. So online gaming tournaments were really heavy in PC until it converted over. Another fun fact about me, back in 2007, 2009, I was semi-pro for Halo 2 and 3 at that time. That was the Walshies, the Two Squared, the Little Poison, the Ogre Twins, Strong Side. That was around that era. But when they did that, before it was eSports, it was called MLG. And then there was another one that was the semis, which was game battles. And game battles was an honor system situation, as in two teams agreed to play each other, and then they'll be like, okay, the prize money's 300, works on PayPal, things like that. They put their emails there. It's an honor system how that worked. But personally, I did FFA, I did free for all at that time, and that was around the era, as in there could be a player that could be like a Michael Jordan or a Wayne Gretzky of a game, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's when they're like, yeah, we're gonna make that more objective. So that's where they started to make more team-based. So if you ever wondered why in FPS there's not any solo things anymore, it's solely for that reason alone. And that's why they also took out team death matches and things like that and made them objective, so nobody can automatically spawn trap you or put you, and put you in situations. So that's that kind of thing. So that's why I'm learning and venturing out now with Apex and Fortnite and in the Modern Warfare 2 and things like that, just to understand the dynamic of now why the team base is so important at this point. So that's where we are now when it comes to that. I was able to cover just a little bit. But here's some facts just to let you know about the esports thing that I thought was interesting that she was able to find. Right now in esports, the industry itself, the market value of esports is almost it actually did. Yeah, it exceeded $1 billion in 2021. Another story is that Beasley Media, which runs like the radio stations like the Riv, Kiss FM, all that, they actually bought a sports team in Overwatch, the Dallas Outlaws. They bought them for $2 million, which is crazy to even think of in the sport, you know, in a game that a team could be bought for that. And then what's crazy is I wonder what it's going to do, because I think Overwatch 2 is doing good, but it's not doing as big as the boom as it was with the first one. I think there's just different debates, different kinds of games over time. People change. It happens.
Competition.
Competition, absolutely.
Market entrants always change that.
Right. Esports sponsorships generate over $600 million in marketing revenue. So being able to, like, for example, the McDonald's, Monster, Red Bull. Red Bull is a huge, one of the first big sponsors in MLG. Like any gamer that you knew from the mid 2000s to maybe now, you'll see stuff that's McDonald's, Monster, Red Bull, but now there's other companies that are like, okay, these things are technically bad for you, so now we're gonna make our own supplements that happen to that, like Dub and Dub Energy and various other different companies too. So there's a lot of different people's hands in the pot when it comes to that. The U.S. is predicted to have the top esports market share by 2023 with PwC, which is very awesome as well. Esports viewers will surpass 45 million by 2023. And one of those things that's really popular for, esports stuff is, it was LOL, wasn't it?
Yes, it's the,
yeah.
One of the,
for League of Legends, yep.
Yes.
And then shooters dominated accumulated prize pools in esports competitions. With SI, with SI in the top 10 falling in the category.
So it just indicates that shooters are still dominate. Where I think this comes in is where Mark talked about prize money and the prize pool. So shooters, first-person shooter games still sort of dominate the competition in terms of how much sponsorship money that they're getting in team competition prizes. But I think, you look at these numbers collectively and realize that there is great market growth and value in the esports industry. Right now, we know there's hundreds of colleges that are actively recruiting players and providing millions of dollars in scholarship money. One of the things that you've heard, Mark, is a high school esports coach, but the National Federation of High School Sports Schools actually recommended to add esports this year to their curriculum. So the last recommendation, just to give you some framework, was in 2000, that same federation suggested lacrosse be added to athletics teams. So there's massive employment opportunities, but there's also sort of promotion of student agency and affinity spaces for students with similar interests. So I think what we talked about, Mark's talked about the success of League of Legends, but just so that you can see the viewership between the Super Bowl, which we know is to be the largest sporting event or mass sporting event in the United States, and then looking at League of Legends World Championship Final, in the US viewership, we're seeing this incline now that's happening where there's opportunities that are now coming out of that. It's now become an economic imperative for companies to attract esports and gaming professionals and aspiring professionals enter their enterprise. So this is, I think, really showcases where the growth is going, because this is just through 2021, and 2022 was really a banner year. So I know we did not talk specifically about STEM, but I will give sort of an overview of STEM. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It is an enterprise. So with that, there are a number of actors and entities within that enterprise. And that can range from everything from health professions all the way to mathematicians and astronauts. Of course, it's interesting that the term was coined by the National Science Foundation in 2001. I actually have a degree in integrated science and technology, which kind of predates the STEM acronym, which is more a cross-disciplinary activity of science and math and engineering as well. But I wanted to sort of showcase what this large ecosystem looks like, right? Because we have, when we talk about who these actors and the players are in the esports enterprise, it really overlaps with the STEM enterprise. So there are platforms where you can actually watch and attain access to gaming tournaments and individual sole play. And then you have competitions where actually the platforms that have the ads run on those, we have sponsors who are actually buying, right, and supporting and galvanizing that activity. And then you have streamers who are obviously streaming, whether that might be team or sole play or collective play individually. The most popular streaming platform is Twitch to access gaming and esports. And then you have teams who also attract sponsors. So there's, you know, each one of these can kind of be streamers, broadcast on platforms, but you really think about it, this is now starting to go in a very, other directional way, alter directional way. And publishers, which are entities and organizations like Blizzard Activation and Microsoft and now Amazon Games and Netflix Games. There's so many, I mentioned TikTok's education and philanthropy division. There's so many entities and organizations that are in this space that are now publishing an esports division or channel that you can actually access material on. And then you have the games themselves, the actual IP. So whatever that particular interest is. And then of course you have fans, which is really consumable of all of these folks, where they watch games on platforms, you engage with streamers or stream yourself, you cheer for teams and or play on a team, and watch competition, and then you play games. So it's really this circular movement happening here, and that's where there's a lot of overlap and a lot of opportunity for collaboration and participation and cross-participatory experiences.
Right, and just to add into as well, another thing that's on the marketing side, I completely forgot to say that, I apologize. I also have a business and a marketing degree from Wayne State. And for what I've been understanding from the esports ecosystem as well on a marketing perspective is that because of having those particular ecosystems right in the middle, it allows indie game developers and companies and things like that to be able to invest into, you know, certain streamers, certain games, to be able to test those. So even if you didn't want to go on the particular career path through that, just being able to make those relationships with people who are in esports will be able to like give a different opportunity for somebody who is a game developer or an artist or any of those. So there's like many different, you know, avenues that can be taken from the ecosystem to, you know, venture out into different things as well.
Yes. And to that end, you've got a couple of trivia questions.
Yep. So we definitely have a trivia question for you. It'll be really, really simple. And it just be kind of raising your hand, and then end up answering correctly. We definitely have a prize for you, and we'll let you know what it is. So as of right now, if you can name 5 games that's been played in esports tournaments today. Okay.
All right. We have LOL.
Okay.
We have Smash.
Yep.
Street Fighter.
Perfect.
Tekken.
Okay.
And Dota.
You said what was the last one?
Dota.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yep. Perfect. Make some noise for him. Great. What we'll do is we got a gift card for you. So in a few, we'll get your email and everything, and then we'll be able to send it out for you.
Yes.
And we got one more, so let's go right into it. Okay. True or false? Esports is now available for students to start their career in any industry. Got you.
True.
Exactly, true. So make some noise for that. We also have a gift card for you as well. So we'll
Seems easy, but a lot of the times people get that wrong because they assume that I can start a career in any industry. You do not have to work in the gaming industry. You do not have to work in the esports enterprise. You can also work across the STEM enterprise, but you can also work in so many other adjacent areas. So this is just talking about some of the transferable skills, obviously, that you're developing through participation in esports, things like teamwork and collaboration, cross-communication, critical thinking, decision-making. Obviously, we know the dexterity is there, improved accessibility And the fact that they have now modded, right, there's one of the things that has really come out of this is transferable skills, is that how do we make this accessible for all? How do we mod out controllers now so that they can apply to individuals who may not have full capacity to use the current state of controller? So it's all kinds of things. There's VR headsets, Meta has now steeped their feet into developing a gaming organization. I'll talk a little bit about that, about some of the work that they're doing. So they have a global gaming business, Meta, and they're now saying that their imperative as of a couple weeks ago is that they want to reflect the growing diversity of the demographics of the country. So their statement was that it's no longer just a social imperative, it's an economic imperative, and that they want to make sure that women obviously comprise nearly half of the gaming industry, but the games don't tend to reflect that growing diversity. So what they're really thinking about now is how they're growing in terms of gender and ethnicity, sexuality. They want more representation. So it's interesting that organizations like Meta, which are, you know, traditional, kind of neo-traditional, I guess, STEM companies that are really taking an interest now in starting a gaming enterprise. But I was going to mention some diversity stats about gaming, and the fact that 46% of gamers, like I said, almost 50% are women, 20% of gamers are Latinx, 15% are Black, 5% are Asian American, 16% are somewhere in the are LGBTQIA plus identifying. 31% have self-identified with disability, with mental health being the most reported, which is really interesting because I think we hear many times that the challenges that we hear is that, well, gaming also creates this mental health sort of disconnect, and that it really does create issues in the mental health wellness space. And so, but what we're hearing is that there is a lot of folks who identify with mental health challenges who are using gaming to either combat that, to address it, or adjusting how they play. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the roles and careers in STEM, but Mark, can you share some of those roles in eSports?
Oh, absolutely, sure. When it comes to roles in eSports, I mean, a lot of them are straightforward, but I'll just explain, just kind of rough about what they are. Obviously, the first thing a lot of people see is like, hey, I want to be a pro gamer and things like that. But I'm gonna let you know, when you get to the college realm of it, it's like, it's more than just playing the games, shockingly enough. I know, you know what I mean? But there's actually like diet and fitness and things that come in those as well. There were some things that I thought about that are happening now that a lot of people don't know. It's like, for example, one thing I tell my students as well, like when they're playing and things like that. Now, we're so used to, let me see if I can make the example. So we're so used to just playing like this, and we have it like, you know, we have it sitting in the chair, the controller's right here, and we're doing that, right? Here's the thing. Did you know that the type of clothes that you wear technically counts as a resistant? So when you have your arms are like this, you're already in like a mid-flex kind of thing. So it's a resistance that you're playing for hours. When you do that, what happens is it messes with the blood flow into the hand itself. And that's where you get these hand cramps. And you're like I only been playing this for like 30 minutes, what's going on? And it happens when you get a little bit
I had a carpal tunnel emergency last week playing Halo. I called Mark and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And so yeah, exercise, important for your joints.
Yeah, which is interesting. So they look at that and they make sure that, you know, they stay hydrated. Usually a lot of people will say the caffeine, the energy drinks is where it needs to. Like, I'm not a health connoisseur or anything like that whatsoever, but they really recommend that you stay 100% hydrated as well, because when you do that, then it gives you more of the ability throughout the whole body and the mind. Because it's still the eyes, it's still the ears, it's still all the necessary senses that you would need to be able to play these particular games. So what they focus on is they focus on diet and things like that. Another thing is, you've seen like the new gamer shirts, they're kind of like, you know, almost skin tight, kind of like soccer players and everything are, because they're a particular clothing that doesn't have any weight on it whatsoever at all. So it would make it a lot easier for you to play. So those are like little things of like professional stuff you learn, and making sure that you can be ergonomic when you're playing keyboard and mouse as well. that's also a challenge. What I see is people have, your keyboard's supposed to be straightforward because it's supposed to support the posture. But what I have seen is people turn their keyboard and then they play it like this. That can also be an issue as well. So it's just a matter of just looking at different patterns the best way you can do. So professional playing will work out pretty well, but like games like 2K and Madden, like for example, 2K or the NBA has an official 2K league for sports teams. So like the Pistons, the Spurs, all of those have actual teams where they'll do 5v5. So they'll have 5 players make their own particular build and they'll go on blacktop playing each other live face to face. And they get salary, I think they get like $45,000 a year to play that. But the thing is, it's a 2-year contract. So that way when the game changes or whatever, or what have you, they swap out their players or they re-sign them or whatever, what have you. So they literally do that. So that's something that's relatively new, but it's something that is happening. And the crazy thing I didn't know is that after this year, normally most of the sports game tournaments of esports is only PlayStation. And I thought it was going to be the crossplay. For what I understand, for certain tournaments, for sports tournaments, I guess it's a little bit more comfortable, like health-wise, with a PlayStation than it is an Xbox. I don't understand the dynamics of those, but they say specifically for sports games, they recommend that controller because I guess it's the grip of how the handle is or whatever. But
it's also politics because OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration,
it's probably so,
said that it was safer. So the studies have showed, but that does not, there's not enough research to really determine if that's true. So,
right.
And then I was going to mention another thing about sort of sponsorship dollars is that the #1 sponsor of esports tournaments is packaged goods and consumer goods companies. So think PepsiCo and Coke and those organizations that what we think about are not sort of on the Mark, you said the health conscious side because they produce, a lot of the junk food, candies and products, but it's interesting that they are the #1 sponsor of this space.
Right, which just, just overruled, the professional player. Of course, there's the coach. The coach has a salary with it as well. For me, being a high school coach, I do have to be up to date with these kids. I can't I can't let them beat me, of course. I got to do the best I can. Competitive is where it needs to. But the thing I like most about the coaching aspect of it for high school, which I would love to do in college, is to be able to understand what people's strengths are and see what you can do to be able to help them improve. Because the thing about with games and things like that, it's still a muscle, just like how it is for basketball, football, etc. But it's a different avenue because it could be somebody who just really enjoys playing the game, but would like to do this in a different way. So it's one of those kind of sports where it's like, they're not going out there in basketball and possibly not getting extremely physically hurt that can affect the rest of their lives, or, it's less risk when it comes to that. But I just like the fact that they could be able to try something different. Maybe they weren't the person who, got picked in gym class or, or was really into physical sports. Maybe they were just good at video games. And what they can do is they can be able to take that into a marketing situation and brand themselves, become Twitch streamers and YouTubers and things like that, be inspired in audio, visual, and games and things like that. I've met several people who are like, for example, Walshy's a great example. Walshy's like, one of the bigger Halo 2, 3 pros back then. But what he did is once he got all those sponsorships, he made a t-shirt company. Decided to do that. And then, T-Square does different companies as well. It's the aspect of knowing that, wow, I didn't know I would have this opportunity if I didn't try it for it. It's like the ultimate taboo. It's like telling your parents, see, you told me not to play video games. See?
I was going to say, speaking to that, Georgetown University is my alma mater, and of course they have a very notable basketball team, but they also have a growing esports team, and that team owns and manages their own likeness, whereas the basketball team can actually monetize yet, and NCAA rules are pending, but they cannot monetize their likeness and their naming yet. So it's very interesting that they're able to get, between $75,000 to $100,000 as a team. Now, that's sort of a low ball amount because they're emerging, but the basketball team, which is bringing about $2 million of revenue to Georgetown and uniform sales and jersey sales and merchandise, they're not able to do the same thing. So it's really interesting that now you see a lot of players who are crossing over, and Georgetown just recruited for people who know who Zion Williamson is, like a Zion Williamson type of gaming for a first-person shooter. And so it's interesting that we'll see what happens, but if this person emerges into be, like Mark said, sort of the Wayne Gretzky, or are we going to have sort of a Jordan type of archetype in gaming for some of these college teams, and what that will look like? Exactly.
So then on top of that, if you don't want to be in that part, let's say you have let's say you have a podcast. Let's say you're a person that likes to, you like to be a sports analyst. And maybe you don't know the sports as much as everybody else, but you may know video games. So one of the things I really like about, which is called shoutcaster or host. Shoutcaster is basically the person to be like, oh, you did that +2 with Sub-Zero, oh my God. You know what I mean? Just having that particular knowledge alone.
It's Marv Albert, but in a
yeah, exactly. I mean, just think about like a John Madden doing that.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, John, man.
Yeah.
So it's just that enticing of it, because a lot of people like watching people play games and things like that, but sometimes people don't really understand what's going on, and that's okay, because for me, like, I know about frame data, but not enough to be like, I know what your +4 versus a -2 would be based on your frame. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't. You know what I mean? We already know what that means, but that means you're getting punished. So so that's just certain things you could be able to do. And what's interesting about that is that shoutcasting is like very popular at conventions and things like that, especially when they're eSports certified. If they see that you're, go up the announcer roles and things like that, you never know. ESPN2 could be like, hey, we would like you to cover this Tekken 8. Would that be something interesting, covering the championships there? Now you're live on Twitch and things like that, and then you could be like, hey, I want to do something like Shannon Sharp or Skip does, but I want to make it my podcast. So now you have the resume to do what you need to. So it's just like using these stepping stone opportunities, because it's, esports is in its infant stages as in terms of growth. So it's always good to be able to do those kind of things. One thing I always learned as younger is that, everybody wants to be a handyman. It's good to be a handyman in any career, but the thing is, you want to make sure you have the best tool set that you can. Learn as many things as you can. Never stop learning. Never stop creating, and never stop, actually, advancing, because you never know what that could be, be for another hand. Like, for example, one of the things I do know is I know how to fix computers and things like that, and do hard drive repair. So like when certain individuals in the music industry, and they're like, man, I'm trying to get all these songs out to the, to the label or something like that, but my hard drive failed. Mark, could you help me with that? I said, okay, sure. And then when they know that aspect, they're like, thanks, I appreciate it. It was like, well, I know this guy that may be interested in this. And I'll be like, okay, cool. And then that works as a gift of trade. So think of these particular opportunities itself as different segues to be able to get to different places that you need to get to.
Yeah.
So that's where an analyst would make sense. If you're about statistics, you're about checking the stats and things like that, there's jobs for that. There's websites out there now where people will take other people's stats from different games and things like that, funnel them through their channel, and be more accurate about that. That's where you see like the Call of Duty stuff, where they'll have like what weapon is most used and all that stuff. That was all individuals that freelanced to do that. Like that's when like Bungie was doing that super heavy, like on their website where you could be able to check the stats there. That was before you could go on any website to do that. Now that's pretty like self-explanatory at this point.
I was going to mention too, one of the, as we go through the academic links, because a lot of those things are there, but sabermetrics, which is how baseball analysis, Moneyball movie, same thing is happening in esports, where there are people who are actually now monetizing that. And now there's a movie that's being made very similar to Moneyball that focuses on the esports community and esports enterprise that just focuses on sabermetrics or analysis of organization that starts to basically create biometrics that are designed to, of course, sort of cheat. And so how do you pick that up, right? If you have a bionic arm or you have some sort of implant or, you know, thumb implants, how does that affect your play? And can you sort of make a Terminator version of a gamer? And what that looks like.
At this point. Yeah, so that would be those things. Of course, the streamer influencer makes sense. The one thing that's the most misconstrued thing about streaming and influencers, you don't have to be a professional at the game. What they want is they want to make sure you can be able to engage to the fact that a company or a game developer can acknowledge what their particular base is based on the marketing research that they build from yours, and then be able to use that information to make it better.
Especially for women and these people of color, this is really where it's now about sort of micro connections versus there being these large viewership. Organizations are streaming or building away from that, or running away from that rather. Seems like they're really trying to get into those more incremental growth opportunities where it's like we get to follow someone over the course of the history. It's really becoming interesting of like, remember that TV, what was the Truman Show or something like that? Where like they want to follow and, you know, incubate your growth from the time that you have 2 or 3 followers of 16 all the way up to can you grow to 16,000 based on just your dedicated hours and connection and engagement with your audience. So that's really something new, whereas, you know, a lot of organizations were at first throwing money at people who had sort of the higher ranking and higher competitive awareness, but now that is changing.
Yeah, and what's interesting about, speaking of those kind of things of testing, beta testing is actually turning into a salary thing. So what's going on for beta testing is that depending on, I got a chance, you know, I had a good friend of mine that was able to allow me to test multiverses before it came out. And yeah, it was, yeah. you know, it's almost like Brawlhalla, but with Warner Brothers characters personally, just by the way the mapping is. And I know this is MAGFest and this is the Smash base, and I know this is kind of taboo to talk about, but it is one of the games I was able to test. And what's crazy about it is that now indie developers are putting it in their marketing budgets. So they're like, you know, now they got companies itself that are able to just be able to pay somebody a salary. I've seen people be able to test anywhere between, I think the salaries I saw were 23 to maybe 60,000 a year, being able to test certain games. So like Microsoft, Sony, a lot of different individuals as well will be able to have that opportunity to be able to give those things. So,
and too, I mean, and again, connection sort of on the STEM industry side, but QA testers are, you know, is a popular STEM career, but Riot Games recently just committed $230 billion that they're planning over the next decade for people who are QA testers of upcoming games. So I don't even know if they have that, right? I was thinking to myself, they just paid out $300 million for gender discrimination, but that's beyond me. I don't know where they're gonna get that money from. Obviously, money that they're particularly coming in to make sure that there's UX designers and of course UI writers. Those are major things that they're investing in. So they're going to start their own academy from what I heard. They have a partnership with General Assembly that they're doing. So it's a lot of opportunity to go from the gaming side or the esports side into STEM careers, and things like computer science and mathematics, and because of the transferable skills that you're getting, those are really, that puts you in the pathway to be able to sort of convert your gaming skill into more STEM-based skills. So one of the things that we'll talk about, we'll show some profiles of different individuals. But I wondered how many people have ever actually attended, how many people have attended a gaming tournament in this room? In person, or even if you've just watched one stream?
If you watched on Twitch or anything.
Awesome, okay, yeah. Just, it's something that's growing where people are now saying, right, there's people who are charging $40 and $50 a head, a ticket, to actually come see a Smash tournament, which is pretty interesting. And then the difference, I think, Mark, we were going to talk about the difference between like if you have there's sole competitive play, and then there's also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most of the time, like for example, Michigan base is Smash. Smash is the #1 game in Michigan, particularly for esports, and the reason why is because they're in this debate right now. I believe the Midwest is the only place in the whole U.S. that allows some first-person shooters, due to unfortunately how the world is with with school shootings and all of these things. They just want to make sure that look, we're not even gonna entice the idea of that. But with the Midwest, they'll allow things that are kind of cartoony, like Splatoon or Fortnite, and for some reason Counter-Strike is in there, but I think it's a little more real than but Modern Warfare isn't. So I'm just kind of like, it takes a little bit more strategic skill for Counter-Strike. You know what I mean? But,
I thought about the fact that with Elden Ring being like the #1 streamed game,
right,
and the fact of the skill development, but it's so much arts and design, and that a lot of people are starting to mod their own Elden Ring for different kinds of collaborative gaming, but also different types of cloud enablement. So it's allowing people to build their own. I mean, there's obviously a LAN center here, but there's people who are doing that now with their own community and saying like, I have like my own homeowners association of gamers that I have in my pod, and I mod my game based on the participants that are in that game. So that is happening more and more.
Yeah, it is. Especially, it's even blending in mainstream and music industry and everything like that as well. So it's like there's many different avenues of where it can grow with that.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about some STEM success stories. If you want to say people who were gamers or enthusiasts who actually made their way into the STEM enterprise in some way. So we wanted to talk about our friend Adam. And I'm just going to pull up his LinkedIn so you can see that. But Adam is a senior software development engineer, and he is responsible for game growth at Amazon Games. Now, you look at his resume or his LinkedIn profile, you can see that he spent a large amount of time in just software development. He has a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Computer Science, but at the same time was just an avid gamer. Part of that went into his love of now sort of Amazon Games, which has only been in existence for a small amount of time since the pandemic era has been around, or pre-pandemic era, I don't know how
I think it's about 3 or 4 years.
But the fact that this is now, he's leading that effort in game growth and software development there, we thought that was pretty exciting to highlight. Let's talk about Tina, because Tina is someone that I think is pretty cool too. She is the general manager of Xbox programming and events. Now, you look at her resume. Now, Tina started out as a gamer as well and got her job related to her doing a tweet on Twitter. So she was on Twitter and happened to be streaming, and then mentioned that she was really interested in doing some content strategy. And then Xbox or Microsoft reached out to her to lead efforts at Xbox and do content strategy there. But you can see, again, there's no previous sort of game development background. She spent a large amount of time at G4 Media, which is a television programming studio, but they do gaming and tech now. There's a gaming and tech cable network. But now has been at Microsoft for 17 years, and then, just because she was already working there and decided that she wanted to do gaming, got into that. So it really is opportunities, I think, that are limitless. And then I want to talk about one of my favorite folks on the planet. I talked about Riot Games and their litigation. Angela Roseborough is a good friend of mine, but one of the things that I love about this is she had no gaming experience whatsoever. She was brought in to be the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Riot Games, and prior to that, she was at Dropbox and then T. Rowe Price, right here in Baltimore. She's a Baltimore City native. And I think what's so interesting about it is that they brought her in right at the time of this pending litigation around gender discrimination, a woman herself, and said, as your imperative, we need to diversify Riot Games' audience. We need to ensure that we're getting more women of color and more non-binary, non-gender conforming, individuals in our talent space, and so in our workforce. And so she was largely a part of that, with recognizing that you had a trouble, you've actually done something wrong, you've had a challenge, but now we can come in and try to fix that. Because ultimately Riot Games had to take a stand and say, we want to do something different. And so I thought that was really, really special. Mark, do you want to talk about, I'll pull up Ryan's information.
Oh yeah, sure. Ryan Johnson's one of the founders of for the community.
Community media. We are community media stands. I think we both found it on accident, but
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We definitely found it on accident.
It's an Atlanta-based e-gaming, eSports and gaming company, but they do these. They call it Riot chats, and it's like a fireside chat, and they just bring people together to talk about everything from careers to just challenges. I'm streaming, and I'm trying to get an audience. I'm trying to get my first sponsor. All different types of things.
And I think they did a little bit of partnerships via Discord as well.
Yes.
And I've been to a couple of their seminars when it comes to that. And what's cool about them is it's not only just the gaming aspect of, inner communities. There's also individuals that are directly from Riot Games, as in people of those, like that actually work in the company. And they also give opportunities, just saying like, hey, they may be looking for a creative director. And that will be somebody who's maybe like for social media or analysts or things like that. And then they'll also give pointers about how the interview's supposed to go. Like maybe some resume tips, some things that they're, directly looking for. And then they also give kids like either like right out of high school, maybe some internship opportunities to be able to, get their feet wet in the particular gaming industry stuff. Show them a little bit of things about learning on Unity and Unreal Engine and things like that, just to segue them into the correct direction of whatever their career wants to be.
And I think it's pretty interesting because Ryan actually, as we just talked about, this is our first panel, but is doing his first eSports panel at the Consumer Electronics Showcase, which is of course the biggest electronics convention in the world now. And so it's very interesting that this is now Consumer Electronics Showcase is saying we want to make a whole entire module around, which South by Southwest kind of lost out, but we want to make this around esports and gaming. And so let's talk about Rob. Yes, Rob Michael. So this is interesting because I love the fact that he says, right, good design is about turning dreams into reality. That's a quote. I bring your creative ideas to life with code. So as obviously you see immediately as a coder, but bringing gaming experiences to bring players back for more. So it's really designing the gaming experience. It's how to make it immersive. And I thought about his current job right now, Gaming Sim, and if you look at, I don't know if you can see some of those particular skills that he has, but the fact that he is created the core game group, game loop logic for multiplayer animation-based movement and melee combat. So he works with functionality over both LAN and stream, and is doing a lot of different things with interfaces and trying to really design that front-end experience for hosting and joining games. So there's, again, there's a lot of those skills that come in from gaming play, because really, how do you know how to design an experience if you've never actually gamed, right? So you want to be able to, and if you look at his past, he was in the Navy for 27 years. And I think that's pretty interesting that he decided to say, hey, I want to go ahead and put sort of my money where my mouth is, or walk the talk to get into this field, utilizing those skills that I have. I'm already doing, game development. I know about algorithms. I'm already sort of skilled in object-oriented programming. How do I put that into my resume and, acquire opportunities that way? And lastly is Layla Bullman, who is the senior program manager and senior game producer at Minecraft Education, which is a Microsoft property. And I just think that's pretty interesting as well, because again, I think what we're trying to get back to is that if you notice, she was a foundation program officer, and then she founded the Florida Scholastic Esports League, just off of the fact that she enjoys gaming and then went into that field. So it's sort of like, after spending some time in a number of enterprises that were not specific to gaming, she worked in the ed tech space, Lego education and social impact, and doing that for scholastic eSports initiatives. But then now is working at Microsoft, like I said, for the as a senior game producer. So it's a lot of opportunity out there, and it's really writing the narrative as you go. It's really being able to take, and your resume is being written every time you load and every time you decide what game you're going to play and what feels best for you.
What's actually interesting about it is that, did anybody know there was a educational version of Minecraft? I thought it was just, you just plug it in and you just go. But the crazy thing about it is that, for me teaching in high school as well, that's like one of the things that's in our curriculum, is that what Minecraft is allowed to do is it also shows you coding base for basic coding. So it's, esports is actually not even just in high school, it's in middle school now as well. And what's interesting about that is being able to get them to develop the best way they need to do on a professional level, which is awesome. And Legos is another. So once they learn the actual coding aspect and see if it's something that they like, that's where they can get, dive more into the artistic value to be able to, provide a different kind of output that they never thought they'd be able to do. And I find that, very intriguing to see what that develops into in the next 6 or 7 years. So it's just really great that it's starting to be like, okay, kids like video games, let's see what we can do to be able to, alter and be able to, manifest more things that they need to do.
Yes, and we want to leave some opportunity for questions, but that wraps up our content and presentation for today. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of both of your backgrounds parallel to mine, so what I'm about to say is should resonate. I take into consideration that the general umbrella is STEM. What is your feeling on STEAM? Because in my educational world, we really try to push their arts.
Yes.
And in esports, there are those components where there are artistic opportunities.
Yeah.
But because STEM is so, the branding of STEM is so strong, that STEAM doesn't really get to open up those same opportunities on the service level of things.
Yes.
So I wanted to get your side.
I definitely, Mark, I'll take it first and then you respond. I feel like that STEAM has been, so I work for an organization, Wolf Trap, which is a performing arts venue here that does early learning for 0 through 5 age group, using arts integrated learning to teach STEM concepts. And so it very much, I think, teaching things like how to clean up for teachers, how to do classroom transitions with the bang of a drum. But the teaching artists were really designed to help to import arts integrated learning into the curriculum, and they saw that students performed better with STEM competencies and those skill growths after they had introduced art. So I do believe in STEAM, and I know now we're in the STREAM era of adding the R, and now people have added an H in there to represent health because they didn't feel like health or medicine were represented well. So I feel like the acronym of STEM has really become, again, a sort of an enterprise. It's no longer this sort of discipline approach, and that it's really much, there's STEM-infused learning in every single discipline and artistic and educational space.
Right. And the thing is about with STEM as well, just being as on the educator side, is that just, reading and learning about it, there's just more of a foundation with STEM where they're just feeling like, like this is where we can be able to bridge off of it, especially when it comes to learning and teaching practices. Because when they implement different things, now they're like, okay, so how this is different, you know what I mean? So they want to make sure that when it comes to two different things, they want to make sure that they can differentiate between the two. And I think that's what the gray area is on that. So I definitely agree with everything that you were saying there. I think it's just really on the foundation value. So any other questions out there? What's up?
So in the STEAM program, amazing PowerPoint, by the way.
Thanks, man.
I got here late, so I'm super upset. But what kind of health aspects do you think are being taught in this STEAM program? Because it's a lot. I kind of got in when you you guys were talking about how even playing it on PlayStation is more ergonomic just because of the clear controller, right? So,
It's nuts, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I totally agree. But like in like the, I guess the nitty gritty gaming aspect of it, when you're legitimately sitting in this chair for 24 hours straight at times, you know what I mean? Like in these teaching developmental programs, like that health aspect, I think, you know, what do you guys think is being, I guess, brought to the table or taught to these players, you know, to kind of incorporate it?
Oh yeah, man. See, the thing is, what I would do is that this is actually, even though I used to play on that particular level, now coaching kids is a completely different world, because now it's the value of understanding the difference between playing the game as a casual and playing the game as a sport, professional sport. Because there's that weird dynamic, as in, like, you know, you play somebody in Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, you're good at the game, like, all right, I'm gonna beat everybody. But there's certain things you already know in tournaments now that it's not always about the string combo anymore. Now it's zoning. Now it's playing it safe. Now it's playing, you know, now it's playing to technical. Now it's learning the frame data. Now it's understanding what character is based off of what different thing. You get what I'm saying? Before,
I mean like health though, right?
Yeah, right. So what I mean on the health portion, what I mean is that being able to stay hydrated, being able to, you know, actual stretches, fitness is very important. The types of,
I mean,
the
I
conditioning.
think about the fact of, so DeMatha, which is not too far away from here, is a high school. Most of my family has gone there. I have a lot of professional athletes in my family that went through the DeMatha enterprise, but it's interesting that the conditioning coaches are now teaching hand-eye exercises, and also how to retina strain, how to reduce retina strain. Are there particular lenses or tints? I mean, blue lens is one of those, but there's other tints depending on whether or not you have astigmatism or you have other eye conditions, and so those types of things. But then it's we were talking about the packaged goods companies like PepsiCo that are the #1 sponsor, but then realize that we have the most unhealthy sort of company with snacks. So they're creating snacks specifically for gamers now, which is different. And Mark talked about a little bit of those, some of the infused waters, and being able to have different hydration kits and that kind of thing that has now come into, but the conditioning, which is like, I remember, you know, my cousins being able to run, you know, a mile in 6 or 7 minutes. And the fact that now that is now being, you know, gamers are actually using ropes and being able to use weighted balls to be able to, and medicine balls, because using that, getting those joints active.
Okay, that's cool. I just was like, because you know, like it was just going through like the presentation and everything. It like sparked like the question in my head, like what like kind of health is being like taught. You know what I mean? Like sitting in that chair, like you develop like, you know, like back issues. So
yes.
Oh yeah.
And like the weightless chair, has anybody tried a weightless chair yet, or a weightless treadmill? But those are things that astronauts use to train because they're anti-gravity. But there's weightless chairs, so they're sitting on a sort of a V-shaped, and they come to an apex in that way. And so it's really being able to nurture how you're building your core, and rather than the traditional gaming chair that we know that's more reclined rocker style. But that who knows if that will make it to mass market, or if that will be something that kind of gets dropped off in the development phase. But
even in the clothes you wear. Honestly, believe it or not, wearing a hoodie or a sweatshirt or anything like that, believe it or not, is building resistance of when you're playing. So it's still weighted regardless. So that's why you see the new gamer stuff is almost like, you know, almost skin tight, like how you've been seeing in soccer and things like that. And they just know that, you know, clothes still have weight at the end of the day. So by being in a particular position where your arm is just kind of already at a tense flex thing because you're using your hands, you know what I mean? But it's something you never think about, because after 2 hours, you're just kind of like, man, my hands, you know, because it's still blood flow consistently coming through the arm. So by being able
even
to sit
special masks, I have to say, for gamers. I don't know if anybody has seen that they are designing special masks for gamers in tournaments, because wearing this, even though it's KN95 or an N95 mask, N95 specifically that has the back strap, like that's very hard to play in. And especially if you're doing anything VR related, you can't put that over your head. Or to me, it's also inequitable because people with big hair, we can't use them.
Right. Exactly. And you had a question, sir?
I just had a follow-up, and also I agree with the big hair thing. My wife has natural hair.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about everybody in the room, and my question is, on the slide that you have all of the possible job opportunities that translates in the field.
Yes.
What would your advice be for trying to transition your current skill set into any of these opportunities, whether you're directly related or adjacent?
So I'm going to go out and say the biggest skill I think there is networking. It is coming to events like this and others and engaging with people who are in the gaming and esports enterprise. So as we talked about, some of these folks, I follow them, reach out to them, because interestingly enough, they're also trying to meet other people who are like them. And they're probably, some of them are here. They're doing market research and trying to understand that as well. So I think a lot of it is networking and being able to send a message to someone and say, hey, I'm really interested in this. Or a lot of the times it's being able to say, well, if there's a specific, like we talked about sort of the analyst role in the esports, on this, like turning that into sabermetrics, but then how are you applying that into being a data analyst on the STEM career side? So it's being able to functionally look at the skills that you have and really, I say, write all of those skills down. What am I, write the games that you enjoy down, and then what are those skills that you're getting from that? Because sales and business development and marketing and all of those things that come into that are also things that people are very much looking for in that space. They're still in STEM industries, but they're not more traditional STEM roles, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. And just you and then we're all, I think we'll be almost out of time here, so go right ahead.
Well, I really appreciate your panel. As someone who knows you guys personally and professionally, as a massage therapist myself and working in the Silicon Valley, I do tend to meet a lot of people who are gamers, who are holding office jobs. And you do notice there are specific stretches to their job. Do you think that they will start integrating, maybe even within games, ways to show gamers how to stretch, how to do those hands, how to integrate?
Absolutely. I've already, they're already implementing them now. I do it with my students and things like that. So one thing will be, one exercise will be hands are out like this, and I'll have them rotate wrist and forward. And the reason why I don't have them do it here is because there's still a muscle tense here. So I make sure that the arms are straight out, not all the way like strict like this, but just a little bit bent, and then be able to move their arms out like this, and then open and close like this. And the reason why you do that is because that way it moves the muscles to be able, so you don't catch the arthritis or anything like that and develop that, not catch it, but develop it. You know what I'm saying? But it's hands reaching, catching, you get it. But
I love that.
I think you guys should definitely put that in like the presentation. And I know I didn't see it in the beginning, but
yes, no, we did not have that, and I think that's a great idea.
All like the whole health aspect of like what you guys do, because like what you told me, just from the snippet, it's like it seems like it's so much, you know what I mean? And like this right here is like amazing, because I didn't know it was like that in depth. But it's like when you really think about it though, it's like or even from just like listening standpoint, I would really love to know like how are we teaching our kids like how to like be healthy at the same time. Like, yo, you're a pro, but I need you to make sure you stretching and being able to bend down and touch your toes at the same time, because especially if you get them at a young age, you know what I mean? They're still developing. Posture,
there's posture issues where, there was a lot of gamers who were developing, were they developing scoliosis or were they more, genetically predisposed for it? No one can really say, right? So it's like, but being able to learn how to adjust your posture to 90 degrees and being able to do those things are all, I think, part of the ergonomic toolkit that needs to come with the curriculum now.
Right, because think about it, eSports could help cure scoliosis. That'd be crazy. Like the dynamic of the healthy exercises that you guys are implementing are proven to like legitimately enhance, somebody's vertebrae. Obviously you can't go the distance because medicine and whatever, but like generally like the exercise practices that are being taught, if they continue this pathway, has proven to straighten or help enhance or make somebody, healthy.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying that right there in the presentation, like we need that.
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Organizations now, like Liquid, TSM, they hire physical therapists and dietitians for their players. And they come up, they create personalized exercises, diet, routine for their players. It shows a lot in their professional play versus the teams that don't do that.
Yes.
You can tell a big difference that your physical health affects your mental health.
Yes.
And your gameplay. So whenever they do that, it's a big part of the newer trend towards health in games.
Yeah.
Right. That's why most tournament games are 15 minutes apiece. And then they get away from the screen itself and they sit somewhere completely different and go from there. And then it's you right here, which we all said. Sorry.
So this is less related to the panel stuff and more your background.
Yeah.
I work as an events organizer for eSports events in Boston. I work with some of the largest ones. The background doesn't matter. Mainly what I ask about is your coaching background for gaming. And I want to talk specifically about the collegiate experience, and more so if you have any experience about administrative support for the esports program or the college you work for.
Well, for high school right now,
Well, for high school, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah.
They just implemented this year. So my coaching background was like back in 2011, 2014. I used to coach, this is back when clans were big, like KSI and all those particulars. And I used to have like sets of being able to train people in Halo 2 and 3, teamwork values, things like that. My specialty was FFA. I was more of at this moment, I was a time analyst type of person. Like as in I would know when weapons spawn and know where I need to be, what I need to do, how much it takes that. I was one of those. So if I was playing FFA, I'm like, okay, I have to headshot this person before somebody comes with a shotgun spawn within 6 seconds. I was that guy. So with my coaching aspects is understanding that there's always an opportunity for something. Like one thing that I thought it was created is called red zone syndrome, which means that when you're having no shields or something like that, that's when you panic, that's when you start running and things like that, and you don't make the executed move where it needs you. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people get, I'm about to die, grenades, you know what I mean? And then that may not be the element where it needs. So it's just one of those things that got like background to understanding like the way it plays. Does that answer the question?
Sorry, I was more so asking about like your experience, because like you work for a school, and I was more so interested in what working in that kind of setting program is like for you versus the coaching aspect itself.
Oh, okay. Well, working with high schoolers is actually very different. It's kind of like starting from ground zero. Like you'll see where their particular skill sets are, like from the low, the medium to the high, and then being able to see gauged off of that, see what they like, see what they don't like, and then just be able to, just set up opportunities. We set up after school for them to be able to play in different leagues, like Play Versus and a couple of those that offer for other high schools, and we just implement those and then make a SWOT analysis of strengths and weaknesses and what we can be able to do. Yeah. Does that help answer the question? Or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Thank you again. I know we're at time. Any final questions or? Okay, well, if you answered a trivia question, please make sure we have your email address so we can.
Yep, and then we can get that for you. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you
again. Thanks again.